Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for O, happy up, let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for O, you know who. Wanna go, gonna glow.
Aloha and welcome back to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. If I sound a little droopy, it's because I am recalibrating after waking up from a nap with the kids. it's just another Saturday afternoon here in Honolulu, but hey, I'm just doing my best impression of the Packers today. While I had no playing with technical difficulties, I am going to rally and do better by the end of this podcast. But the Packers went into Arizona less efficiently than you'd like to see. But you know what? It's the NFL, and there are a lot of teams wishing that they secured a win in the winning moments of their game this Sunday. So, long-winded intro aside, Iowa Joe is here with me. And Joe, I know you did the post game with Brian, but overall thoughts on the game today?
It was a mess. It was gross. It was a win, but it was. You know how they always talk about politicians and voting for the lesser of two evils and shit like that? That's kind of how I feel about this game. I think the lesser of two evils won the friggin' game just out of pure happenstance more than anything. I mean, we'll get into more of deep dive when we get into our segments, but it wasn't pretty. It was a win. You got to take it for what it was, and just hope that. I will say this, and this can be considered deep dive or whatever, but like I said in our post game with Brian, if I'm Gutekunst, this whole next week is spent on nothing but workouts on cornerbacks. And I don't care if you got to scour the practice squads. I don't care if you got to find Jim Bob off the street. I don't care if you've got to bring in somebody from Australia or somebody off of NFL Europe's Ghost of the Past or whatever. I'd be searching.
Yep. And I know I put a lot of tags on a lot of people. We'll just go on that topic for a little bit. I know I put a lot of tags on a lot of the guys who are available as street free agents at the moment. And, honestly, I've done that more as a, don't expect much disclaimer. But the Packers are at the point with what they've put into this season. You've got to just do something to try and, you've got to churn the water here no matter what. And I do believe starting with that is making Valentine Hobbs a true competition. And that's the first domino to fall, and you kind of make moves from there, whether it's, I have no idea what his health is, but signing in Asante Samuel Jr. off the street or whatever, just you cannot let this opportunity go because, I we'll get into it as go into the show, but they had that cutaway of Halfley where you see him smack the desk in the press box, and I do think there's an element of hey, I'm trying to do other shit here, and you guys are fucking it up anyway, kind of thing. So yeah,
Well, if you're a mouth reader, you could even see he said, "What the fuck's going on out there?"
Right, exactly. And like I said, we'll get into the weeds on those as we get through the details. But I think that the people who are Halfley's not trying stuff, Halfley's not making adjustments, as he proved last year, those thoughts can sort of, go up the creek too. But unfortunately, I don't know if the solutions are on roster. Like I said, there's a few minor things they can do, giving Valentine more of a real shot as a starter. Maybe
that's the crazy thing, though. Last year, our corners, they weren't great by any means, but they were still playing better than what they're playing now. And we didn't have quite the pass rush with last year as the Packers do right now. So what changed between last year and this year? The only thing is you got rid of Jair and you brought in Nate Hobbs.
Right, and you can't even, people are like, oh, but it's as much as both of you and I were I wouldn't dump Jair yet. It's well, he hasn't played well with the Ravens, and he didn't play for the most part of the second half of last season. So it's okay, so like you said, what has changed? Honestly, nothing really. And a lot of the tweets seen are Hobbs had one job and was to be not worse than Eric Stokes said he kind of has been in a sense. Like I said, we'll get there when we get to stale and moldy segments, but that's the dour that's coming out of this game. That and some of the issues that we've talked about before, but um, we'll try and move out of the
You just want to go ahead and jump in?
yeah. Let's save those segments for the those
Fresh
topics for the
cheese.
proper segments. So,
Here, I'll hit the button again.
Fresh cheese.
do you want to go first?
Well, if I'm going to go first, then I'm going to take the lowest hanging fruit of lowest hanging fruits, and that's got to be Micah Parsons. I said this during the live that this has got to be the best game Micah Parsons has had in the green and gold so far. Hopefully, he can do more, but so far, this has been his best game. He had 5 QB pressures, 3 sacks, should have had a lot more. But again, they weren't calling a lot of the shit that they were supposed to be calling. And I'm going to say it now. Well, no, I'll save it because this can be a moldy too. But like I said, easily is the MVP of the game, easily saved the game for the Packers. This is, there was so much strife the last couple of weeks because you hear the casual fan, oh, well, why'd we give up so much for Parsons and why'd we pay Parsons so much because he's not doing anything. This is the game where you can look at those people and tell them to shut the fuck up because this was what we needed out of Micah Parsons.
Yep, totally agree with you. And what's it like? The whole thing that we always talk about is, you know, his impact. It was always going to be tangible, but at the same time, it wasn't going to be as cut and dry as a lot of people say. Obviously, we all want him to have the big counting stats and that kind of stuff, but the reality is that one, he instantly becomes enemy number one for any opposing team. That's just how this league works. Two, excuse me, he's getting mauled on so many plays and stuff. Like you said, you had a few more today. And then three, that kind of impact that you're getting from a player like that, you just can't quantify how important it is to have a guy who just plays at the level he does. And I saw someone say it. He basically is the kind of impact he's having is like peak Matthews. And I think Parsons is a better player. I know at one point Clay was maybe on a Hall of Fame-ish trajectory pattern, and he was in the Defensive Player of the Year talks and all that kind of stuff. At the same time, though, it wasn't to this level where it was like, because two things that Micah kind of has on him is like he's just a better technician. I love Clay. I love all the things he did as a Packer, but there was always an element of like he's just controlled chaos, and sometimes he was uncontrolled chaos and wasn't always necessarily the best technician kind of thing. You see a technical prowess to Parsons' game every time, and on top of it, you can't project this thing out, but he has been healthier than Clay has through his career to this point, at least. We'll see where it goes from this point, but.
And just to add that to that, I think Micah is a little bit more athletic too than what Clay was. He was a freak, but I think Micah was a little bit more.
Yeah, different kinds of athletes. And to the point of, like you said, the best game as a Green Bay Packer, from a production standpoint, arguably his best game ever as a pro because it was Schneidman I forget it was Schneidman, Demovsky, or Wes Hod who posted, this is his first career 3-sack game. He's had 2.5 on at least one or two other occasions, but this is the first where he actually hit 3 in a game. So, I mean, go figure, for his first multi-sack game as a Packer, he blows through his career high. So, just excellent stuff from Parsons. And to that point, Rashawn had the first forced fumble of the season, pulled the Packers back to in on a turnover counter on the year. So they're dead even in terms of turnover differential. And on a day where you're just not doing much well, you needed that jump start from some of your best players, and just to like the point you're bringing up about Parsons, your best players absolutely came through on the day, and The other point I would like to make is my reverse jinx on the pass rush worked. The your over under was 2.5 sacks, and I said they will not, and it was a reverse jinx, and it
We both
absolutely
might have to
unequivocally
go
worked.
with that going forward because if you
Yeah,
look at my over under, my prediction on Golden was way off, and
yeah,
we'll get on that a little bit later too.
yep. So just a good thing to see, and you know there are some concerning things to see with this front, and we'll get into it later. But it was nice to see the pressure come back. 6 total sacks and pressure on a bunch of other occasions. Obviously, Micah had half the sacks, but we finally got to see Quay going in the pass rush game, and I thought he was superb. One of the few things that Jonathan Vilma actually got right is that Quay is a really good interior blitzer, and he just absolutely mauled the running back on both of his sacks today. It was really good to see that kind of play out of him. He's been close a couple times so far this season, but really good to see him get on the board. And he ends the day with what did he end it? Yeah, he ends the day with 1.5 sacks.
Did they bump it
Enigbari.
down to 1.5? It was two there for the longest time.
No, I think what I saw earlier was he had one, Kingsley had a full, but then they were like, oh no, like, or yeah, and they were like, he had one, Kingsley had one, but then they were like, no, Quay, he fell off, but then he did get back on the sack, and Enigbari was the first one to help clean it up and stuff. So they fixed that one up, and then the other sack was oh no, and that's 6 because 1.5 plus a half, and then Rashawn's 1 and Parsons 3. So, like I said, really good to see the production come back for the pass rush. And they're always going to be high on pressure count, but it's really good to see them convert into completed sacks more often because if unfortunately you're not going to get many turnover plays or your corners aren't going to be good enough. Like that front, sorry, the weight of the world does fall on you, and you got to convert your opportunities, and they honestly had chances for a couple more. So really good to see that on the defensive front. My fresh is like just it wasn't a good day at the office. The offense did close to nothing the whole first half. Defense was letting up, just couldn't get off the field on third down, especially third and long all game. And yet when it really mattered, your defense forces a stop on 4th and 1. You go down the field. LaFleur got a little lazy with the play. Not lazy, but he got a little suspect with the play calling down the end. You can tell he was trying to force Arizona to use timeouts and stuff. And Jordan and Jacobs basically, I'll go so far as to say, bailed him out from some bad choices, and even had LaFleur admitting that he called the timeout on 4th and 2 and sent the offense back out because of how really dejected Jordan looked after that third down toss play that he was about to kick the field goal to tie the game at 23 after. Really good to see them come out. Jordan executes on the 4th and 2, and then Jacobs has some just grown up runs coming out of that fourth down conversion. The first one, I mean, was pretty cut and dry, like, it was a pretty standard play. But then the play after it, where LaFleur is just so obviously trying to force Arizona to burn timeouts inside the 2-minute warning, that play is dead to rights, and he bends it outside. Luckily, no one gets called for a phantom hold there, and he pushes it up for like 5 or 6 yards and gets us down to the 1. And just the two, like I said, just like Parsons and Gary are two of your best players on defense. Quay is trying to enter the conversation as a guy who deserves to get his contract extended here and stuff, and reportedly has a deal on the table. But it's just good to see that in the gotta have it moments, your best players on either side of the ball made plays, and then the what's it called? The Packers come down on the final drive on defense. Yes, Arizona gets the ball past midfield. Yes, it's on the backs of a thing we're going to definitely talk about in an upcoming segment, but it was the funniest thing to see to have Parsons off the field out of Arizona timeout, get a blow, and then he comes back on the field, and the very next play, he is absolutely shot out of a cannon and bends the edge. And then I think the funniest reverse angle thing in that play is the fact that Will Hernandez is trying to recover to help Jonah Williams, the right tackle. And, obviously he's trying to push Parsons on the side to push him past Brissett, but in slow mo, especially, it looks like he pushes him into Brissett. So Parsons, slingshots his way around the tackle and then gets in there for a hit. And then even on the final play, Rashawn gets enough heat on Brissett that while he doesn't, force a bad throw or anything, it does like speed Brissett's clock up, and that ball maybe hangs up a little more than Brissett wants it to, and all. So your best players with the game on the line came through for you, and none of us are calling this an A plus, anything near an A plus, B plus win or anything like that. But circumstances, what they were, the plane, your schedule is all off and stuff like that. And as much as I always say, like, you're professionals, you got to figure it the fuck out. It took to the 57th minute of the game, but they did figure it out and they made enough plays to win this one. And I know some will say, like, what's the line between a good team and, the good team should win regardless and stuff. Well, they did win regardless. And they did what good teams do, which is, they didn't cover, but they did enough to get a win in a game that was not going their way basically the whole afternoon. So, yeah, and as much as we would have definitely dumped on them for just never pulling out of the nosedive, you have to give them credit for sticking the landing and getting that thing down on the ground. So, yes, we're going to use up all the airplane analogies we can in this episode.
Now, that could be a moldy because you're a friggin' professional team. Why wait till the night before to leave to go to a game that you're going to be playing on the West Coast?
Right. That was a weird one, too, that their flight was, like, late. Like, and that was the thing is, like, in my head, I was like, oh, it shouldn't matter. But then I was like, wait, like, what? Yeah. And like you said, we'll go into that afterwards. But it was funky that, like, the fact that it was even an issue was kind of like, why? So, yeah.
But I think you touched on a lot of great things there, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump on to my next Fred. I know I kind of razzed you about this a little bit, but Haverisk or however you want to Haversick, that kid came out of nowhere. Now he's got his name in history because he's the franchise leading, or he's kicked the longest field goal in franchise history. It's got me wondering right now what they're going to do with him when McManus comes back. I mean, who would have thought we'll be going into week 8 and we may have a kicking competition going on between McManus and Haversick. And I brought this up a lot in the post-game show, but what do you do with him? I mean, if McManus comes back and he's fully healthy, and we don't know what his progress is, you figure if it was bad enough, they would have just put him on IR for, a couple weeks, the 4-week minimum, and then evaluate it from there. But they haven't done that. I know they don't need the open roster spot yet, but, even now, let's say he starts practicing this next week. Does that mean you cut the kid and hope that you can maybe stash him on practice squad without him getting claimed? Do you, like Brian kind of was joking around with, do you try to ship him out for like a 7th round pick? Do you, like, what do you, I mean, you can't justify keeping 2 place kickers on the 53-man roster, can you? So, I mean, I got to give him his due today because, a 61-yarder, probably 50% of the points today were from him. So, and he's been clutch. And I know that was the thing that you were talking about when they brought him in for a workout and then signed him, that, this isn't the guy that that's not what he was before. So you weren't expecting it now, but he's been so damn clutch the last 2 games. So what do you do?
Yeah. Like, you look at his, like I said, you look at or don't look at his college stats because he was like a 60 something percent kicker in college. And that was like overall, he was consistently a 60 something percent kicker. It wasn't like, he figured it out as a senior and kicked like 70 some high 70s, low 80s percent or something. That was like, he was always kind of like up and down. And I know that some teams do the like, oh, this is the long range kicker and this is the short range kicker and stuff like that and all. But like, his stats were like, oh man, like they're in trouble. Like they're, which always like makes you wonder, like, it always kind of makes you shake your head where you're like, okay, I understand that like there's not like a, there aren't the like 90% plus kickers out there from, for every NFL team, but it's like you think there's 100 whatever NCAA teams, and you figure a third of those kickers are good kickers every season, and how are there not an abundance of those guys just hanging out and around and available for you to be like, oh, let's go. But like that just makes the fairy tale even better. I don't know. I really don't know. What makes it even worse is you just gave McManus the 3-year extension and all that kind of stuff. But
And that's what I mentioned in the post game was you just signed him for 3 years, so it's not like you can say at the end of the season, okay, we're going to get rid of McManus and keep Haver.
and we've both made our feelings on McManus, and I know that his is a different situation than a lot of others, and some of the testimonies have made it different than it should be, and blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff. But that's one of those I've never felt great about having him on roster, and so looking for reasons to get rid of him. Maybe I'm not going to deny, but also the thing I
Mike just made me choke on my drink with that one because I wasn't expecting that comment.
but like, if you want to just look at it from a pure football standpoint, what were we saying for the longest time with Crosby is like, okay, cool, like he had the two bad he had 2012 and he had 2018 and he worked through them, and Crosby was a beloved figure in Packers history and all that kind of stuff. But from 20 on, you were kind of like, at some point the wheels are gonna fall off and he's gonna start being a 40-year-old guy kind of thing. And you saw it in 2022 where it was like, oh my god, like he is being held together by Bondo and duct tape at this point. And the
Most
fact that
kickers lose strength once they hit a certain age. You saw it with everybody.
right,
Both the Andersons, what was Vinatieri was another one that, he was only good from like 40 yards out. Anything after that, you were
just yeah.
wishing in the wind.
And with McManus, my whole, from just a football standpoint, my whole thing with him is like, how did he get hurt? It wasn't, it wasn't the like tackles he had to make in the Cowboys game. Dude got hurt in practice. Like, and so like, I look at it this way:
We don't know what happened. Let's preference that. We have no idea what happened.
The only thing we've been told is he got hurt in practice. And everyone's been pretty mum about it outside of, oh, Brandon thinks he can go. Like, that's like really the only thing we've heard. I don't know. I'm kind of hoping that they can move on. Like I said, if we only want to consider the football side of it, it's like, okay, one, McManus isn't going to just get better at this point of his career. He's only going to be worse than the kicker. Like you said, father time, undefeated, all those adages. He is getting older and older and older. He's pushing 40. And like, I don't think this will be one of those injuries, but it could be the case where it's like, oh, like he looks different after this injury kind of thing and stuff like that. I do think what'll happen before they make a decision either way is you're going to have a game where somehow both guys are up. And I think that, or at least they're going to keep Haversick at least 1 week after McManus comes back kind of thing. And it's the whole, if there's any issue, they move on kind of thing. But if he looks fine, unfortunately, I think Haversick gets cut and he becomes this really important like footnote in Packers history and stuff, and has really been a key component to 2 wins more than he should have been. We were as long as he's the kicker, it should force LaFleur to be aggressive. And he, in some ways, some weird ways, you can argue he was. So, like, does he just kick the field goal if McManus has been healthy this season and, like, tie the game at 23 kind of thing? Who knows, right? But you come in one week, you're the top of the discussion for the full first half of the game. You kick what is the game like clinching ceiling, to put the team back up 2 scores late against the Bengals, and then you help shift momentum with a 61-yard dome knocker right before halftime. And it's kind of a bummer that Packers career probably ends in a couple weeks, but like, I don't know. Would I be really sad that he's still the kicker the rest of the season? I don't think so. And hey, on the another football side of it, the Packers would save 1.8 million in cap space if they cut McManus. So
Like I said, I really don't know how they're going to handle it. I'm not, because now you worry about some kind of regression. Is he kicking above what his ability is? So do we come back like next week against Pittsburgh and now we have the Mason Crosby Bengals game all over again? Or, that kind of situation. I don't know. I'm not hoping that on the kid. This has been a really great story. And who knows, depending on the McManus thing, maybe you can end up, like Brian said, shipping him out for like a 7th-round conditional draft pick or something like that. And is it likely? No, because kickers usually don't go for draft picks and trades and shit like that. But I don't know. And he's been damn good with kickoffs too. So I got kind of a moldy take for him. It could even, or a stale take for him, but could even end up in a moldy after sitting here thinking about it. But what else you got for?
I'm just gonna give a couple more like. Oh, okay. The other one is throws to Tucker. He didn't have the most efficient, 5 receptions on 10 targets, but the 10 targets is a nice change for once. To see Love kind of force feed a guy as much as he's going to in any game scenario. The one
And the
play
5
that's
misses weren't his fault. Most
one
of
of
them
them,
were.
one of them kind of was the one where the ball
Right.
goes through it. It's not a perfect throw, but also it's like, come on, Tucker, like you gotta catch that one.
Right.
That was the only one where it's kind of like, oh no. But otherwise, yeah, like the other 4 were either you weren't gonna do anything with those, or they were just misses by Jordan. So, but he has the big play. He has a couple big plays to get them moving in the middle of the field. None bigger than his 3rd down conversion where he catches the ball after chipping the defensive end and he gets himself upfield enough to convert for first down. And then the touchdown, but obviously none bigger than the 4th down conversion play where he runs just a superb route and Jordan puts it on him right before the sideline. What's it called? Kraft does a good job making sure he gets his feet inbounds, and the Packers go on to score the game-winning touchdown. So absolutely have to highlight Kraft's play there. And then, Dobbs had another solid game. I know, like, I'll always wonder if he ran his post route on the first 4th down correctly. I'm always kind of like, should he have kept it more vertical? Should he have, been able to adjust? But to me, that's more on Jordan. You've got to make sure that you got to throw it to the opposite pylon. So from Jordan's point of view, throw it more left than up the field. It's much easier for your receiver to adjust, like, forward as opposed to having to lean back and stuff. But it was a bummer that they couldn't convert on that one because I do think that would adjust how the game goes from that point. And yeah, like, other than that though, I'm out of freshes.
I got to give it to Josh Jacobs for coming in still sick, coming in dealing with a calf injury that they were nursing throughout. That and I know you guys can take this whether it was a joke or whatever, but I really kind of mean it because when you look at what an MVP is, it's a guy that the team leans on. He's a team leader. He has the stats, he has the ability, but he also is that key component to a team. Josh Jacobs Josh Jacobs is an MVP if I can get my words out correctly. Uh, is he going to get the award at the end of the year? No, but he would be a guy that deserves it because he's we've talked about this for the first so many weeks that he's had to work for every yard that he's gained. He's had to work for every touchdown he's gained. And when he's not going, this offense struggles. And so, yeah, I really got to put him in the fresh, even though stats wise, he really didn't have like a tremendous game. He still put up, what was it, 55 yards with 2 touchdowns. So, it wasn't great, but he also didn't play a ton of snaps.
Yeah, he only had 14 touches the whole game, and I kind of jokingly tweeted after he scored the final touchdown that like if Jacobs doesn't touch the ball again, this is his second best efficient game after last week's game in terms of how he's run the ball. It's not his most production by a long shot, but just in terms of how he's looked and legitimately on a bad wheel, he gave you good production. Honestly, if either his calf or the turf is better, he probably has an even bigger game. We'll get to the turf in a later point stuff. Yeah, I agree with
And
you. Go
I
for
was
it.
just going to say the calf could be just dehydration because of being sick.
I,
If anybody knows getting one of them nasty Charlie horses in your calf and trying to walk on it for the next 3 days is just terrible. That could be something as simple as that, and that's why it's bugging him so much.
Right. I'm definitely allowing a little credence to that with the fact that he did play today, played, well. Like, he didn't look like it was really dogging him at any point of the game and stuff. So I do think that was something that I kind of was like, clinging to as like trying to be half glass full and stuff is maybe it is because, like you said, it definitely would make sense. Any of you who've had the flu, it's definitely a possibility, and you just hope that they're able to literally work it out over this next week because they're going to need him in Pittsburgh. Other than that, I touched on Jacobs in my your stars came through at the end of the game, but you're right, like he did give them legitimately everything he had this game, and it was enough to get the win. With that, I'm out of fresh. Like I said, the freshest thing I've got for this game is they got the win, and it's something that we both belly ached over, like the Browns games and the Cowboys games, where it's like there were elements of those games where it's like. And even the Bengals game to an extent, where the last 4 games you played, this has been an inconsistent team. You're getting either one whole phase that's not working, or in the event of this game where it's like all of your phases are all 3 phases have misfired at different points, and it's kind of like, okay, are they going to come together at the end, or is it just going to be one of those where it's like they just can't get their shit together and you blow the game as a result of that? And luckily they all had one last time to throw up on themselves. You had the special teams giving up, getting called for a face mask, and then the defense just giving up multiple big plays to give the lead back up and stuff, and then the offense just throwing up all over itself, both down 7 and then down 3 towards the end of the game. So it's like they all got it literally out of their system one last time and made enough plays to secure the win. So like I said, that's the most fresh thing that I can say about it. But otherwise, I know we're gonna have a bunch for stale and moldy for this week. So unless you got anything else, I'm ready to move on.
So, no, we're going to move on. So, I'm going to go ahead and do one that can fit in both fresh and stale. So, I'm going to hit the button and then I'll get into it.
What's this stale shit?
So, Matthew Golden was doing tremendous. I mean, he was catching everything thrown to him. And so, this is what makes it kind of fresh. He was looking good, making the catches, getting what he could out of what little he was given. And what makes it stale is then he's just gone. And is that because he got a little dinged up? Because I know on one hit that they were looking at him for like, because I think they got him a little bit out of bounds, and then he was getting looked at for something, and then but then you didn't see him do anything the rest of the game. So was that cautionary? Was that Jordan just not looking for him? Was that LaFleur not calling anything for him? And you can't do that with a rookie. You may be able to do that with a guy that's been in the league for a couple of years, but you're wanting to get the best out of this kid right away. You can't just go hot for a minute and then cold for the next 3.5 quarters of a game. And so that's what makes us stale is just the lack of use of Matthew Gold. Now, again, like I said, I know they were looking at him for a minute. Could it have been just cautionary that you didn't see him the rest of the game get used or get plays called toward him? But yeah, I was not happy with that.
Yeah, no, we'll put it in stale because the clearest tell is the fact that you get him 3 touches on the opening drive. Not the most efficient, but he gets 20 yards. He's moving the chains for you, and then you don't hear from him until I believe it's the first touchdown drive, first or the second touchdown drive, where he catches that crossing route and gets you down to the like the 3 yard line or whatever. Let's see which drive is it.
I know
It's
he had
the
4 catches on 4 targets for 37 yards.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't hear from him again until the first touchdown drive where he catches that he catches that crossing route that gets you down to the 7 and then Jacobs takes it in for the touchdown on the next play. But it's like you said, it can't be that hard to get Golden the ball, and like I said, they just targeted Kraft 10 times today, and Golden is 4 for 4. I don't, I know a lot of people are going to say like they're avoid, they're this and that. I think the problem is that they're using him on stuff that's more intermediate to downfield, and they're just not getting the protection to maximize his effectiveness on those kind of routes. And then the only way they're like, which is dumb. This is the part that's really stale for me is like it's either like intermediate to deep stuff or behind the line of scrimmage stuff. And it's like he can run a slant. We saw him create 20 yards off of a hitch route last week and stuff. Like I said, I'm the biggest Dobbs fan and supporter and defender, but like use Golden in some of those scenarios, especially if Wicks is gonna be like fighting whatever lower leg issues he's got. He left today's game with a calf thing himself and stuff. Like you can utilize Golden on a lot of those opportunities. So like use him. Like I said, I know everyone's like the 4.29 speed, the 4.29 speed. We'll see in the long run if it really plays out. But the part of the 4.29 that's legit to me is the explosiveness out of his breaks. He has that rare blink and he's gone kind of explosive fast twitch movement, and that's the stuff you need on 3-step slants, quick hitches, quick cutters and stuff like that to get open in the short range. LaFleur's got to start using him there more often, and the other side of that really helps him in that regard is his hands are so good. I don't believe he's got a drop on the knocking on my coal wood table right now because don't want to jinx the young guy. But yeah, like I don't think they're, as some people are like, they're not trying to get him the ball. I actually do think they are trying to get him the ball, but LaFleur is trying to force feed it in downfield shots and stuff. And Love is just not comfortable enough in the pocket for that to occur. He's like, there's too much like traffic in the pocket. There's too much crap happening for him to feel like he can't wait for those routes to come open, and it ain't going to get any better against Pittsburgh next week. So, like I said, it can't just be intermediate to deep shot. You've got to find shit. You got to find work for him in that 5 yard range, and he should be an absolute weapon in that regard. So, look, that's one that LaFleur's absolutely got to figure his shit out on that one.
He's 18 of 23 so far. And I think a couple of those were just like overthrows, and
yeah,
because at 5, yeah,
two of those we know where 2 of those are from the Commanders game.
Yeah.
One underthrow and one overthrow
on him if you want.
Yeah. No. Like
he had 2 targets against Washington with no receptions. He had 6 targets against Dallas with 5 receptions. He had 5 targets against Cincy with 3 receptions, and then he was 4 for 4 today.
Yeah.
So But I mean, completely agree with you on that, and I understand. My thing is they when Rogers was there, they loved to do those little touch passes, and they were successful. Why aren't they doing a little bit more with him on that?
You know, that's the thing. A lot of people were belly aching over like the jet sweeps and stuff early in the season. And my one concern with that is like LaFleur's done it. If you look at like 2020 and 2021, he like packs them. It's kind of like your points joke where like he's like, I've got to actually hand the jet sweep off like a dozen times for it to matter. But he does them all in the first like 3 to 4 weeks of a season, and
Yeah.
and then after that, it's like okay, like the guys are just running for cardio at this point, or running to get into a route kind of thing and all. And um, even
Hell,
with
I'd do
Golden,
Canadian Football League rules with him, where you'd start him back by the like back by the running back, and then just have him run full speed towards the line of scrimmage before you hike the ball, and then he's already got a full head of team going down deep.
yeah, I agree. And I was just gonna say that's a route you can use him on because they would do that with Devontae, where he would do the orbit or return motion where he's moving prior to snap, and then he runs that quick out route kind of thing. If you go and look for 2019 through 2021, that was like their go-to fourth down and short conversion play, where it was like get Adams on that quick hitting route, and then he was like uncoverable. So same thing is like Golden can run that for you. So, and I do think this is all part of the process. Is like this is what they do with this is what the Packers do with rookies. Is they have a defined role for you. They want to utilize you, and as the season goes, they're going to expand your role and all that kind of stuff. But I do think, especially with Reed out, Watson still not back, your O line issues, and now Wicks being kind of iffy, you gotta just start giving Golden way more things to do. And I think he's gonna hit more than he doesn't in terms of these plays. So it's like, just start. So you've already established a baseline in terms of what he can give the offense. Now it's the point where it's like you gotta just kind of keep giving him shit and find out how much can he handle at this point. And then you can kind of go the reverse where it's like, okay, maybe it's too much, or you find out shit, the kid is truly golden and can do every kind of thing. So I do think you're at the inflection point of the season where it's like, yeah, like just put it all on his back and give it all to him to figure out and stuff like that. That's that's where I'm at with the golden stuff. And no, everyone wants to make it some simple answer, what's wrong, what's not happening and stuff. It's not anywhere near as straightforward and simple as a lot of people want it to be. There's a lot more convoluted layers to it. But to me, it's one where this is an adjustment LaFleur needs to make, and it's partly it's partly golden driven in terms of how good he's been, and it's partly roster driven in terms of all the injuries and issues you're dealing with. So it's time for LaFleur to, and like you have those comments where it's like, oh, LaFleur's talking to him to make during the week to make him feel better and stuff like that and all and stuff. It's like, just let him run a fucking 3-step hitch. Or 3-step slat. Like that's how you're gonna make it be. And like I said, I I know there's reportedly Dobbs has a contract offer on the table, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. I still don't think the percentages of him being back are great. I think that's a severely, under, the report was like they had offered him a 13 million a year deal in the offseason, and they kind of Dobbs' side kind of turned it down. I'm assuming they're offering him like 8 to 10. Like there's an offer on the table and stuff, but it's like if you sign it, it's gonna be the number we want you at kind of thing. I just don't think him and Watson can both be back next season. I just don't. I think that's one of the roster crunch points. And my whole point to bringing that up is like, that's from LaFleur's point of view. You've got to do whatever you can to get Golden established as that next guy, as a like, this is your reliable security blanket guy as a receiver. And like, we've seen it a couple times the past couple weeks where like he's kind of looked for Dobbs a little bit more than he should have, and he's kind of, like in situations where it's like that route was never going to be open, and he kind of just trusted Romeo to do something kind of thing. And I love Romeo. He does a lot of good things, but he's not the kind of guy who's just gonna magic wand the play out of thin air kind of thing. He is who he is. He's reliable, but he's not special kind of thing. That kind of thing. Golden has the chance to be special. He has the talent and the skills to be special. So you're reaching the midpoint of the season, and it's like, okay, I get that you want to bring him along with guide rails on and stuff like that. It's time to start putting the guy. Maybe you only put one of them down, like the bowling bumper rails. Maybe you only put one of them down. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, be careful. So,
The invasion of the kids.
so I suffice it to say, I agree with you. I would definitely have it in the stale too, where it's like before. I've always preached that there's a level of patience, even if he had like broken the ground running. It was even if Golden to this point had like an Emeka Ibuka stats with like 400 yards, it was still going to have come in the role that he's playing for the Packers. Like, it would have been like he's going to catch all the digs, he's going to catch some posts, he's going to catch some corner routes. Maybe if he catches those 2 passes against the Redskins, or if he doesn't step out of bounds against the Browns, he's got 3 touchdowns on his ledger and another 200 yards to his name, kind of thing and stuff. But it doesn't change how LaFleur would be using him. You know what I mean? But that's the thing to me is, okay, that's got to change now. Your offense and your team needs it to change, and it's time to figure out where this kid can take you. You're at that point, and it's time. It is time.
And on top of that, if you believe what Kenny Albert and Jonathan Vilma were saying, he was eating Will Johnson alive. And it's like, okay, well, you've got, they've been talking about how Will Johnson has been amazing so far this year, and you've got your guy eating him alive. Hit him. Get him the ball more often. That's what you want out of somebody, is to be able to beat their number one corner and that. So we've hit home on that enough so far. So what are you going to throw out there for your first stale?
My stale is going to be just this O-line play. It was barely good enough today. They've got it so much better this week. It's going to be ugly. Like, we talked ad nauseum about how this is not a special front for the Cardinals. And like I said, there were so many times where Love was either having to move in the pocket way more than he should have, or, part of the problem with him not being able to hit Golden is like he's having to get the ball out way sooner than he wants. And some people are like, oh my God, he threw that one at Kraft's feet, or he did this. And really the only one that was his fault is the one where he muffed the snap coming out of off the kick return. But otherwise, it's like you had so many times where either he didn't have time or he had more time than he thought he did. And he was kind of like, you know what, I got to just take care of the ball, not make a stupid mistake and hit something underneath kind of thing and all. And that just can't be how it is going forward. Walker hasn't been good this season. He's got to be a whole lot better. Tom is battling, but you can tell he's not himself. Like, there were a couple plays today, like last week, where it's like the play got screwed because Zach Tom can't be Zach Tom right now. I think Elton has settled in because they're not just playing musical chairs on both sides of him. And then I do, a lot of people are giving it. I think a lot of people are piggybacking on a guy who's going to come up in the moldy just to get on Goot. I don't think Banks has been nearly as bad as he was early in the season. I think he's settled in some, and he's like, yes, it's not great to be paying him as much money as they're paying him, but if he's giving you league average play at left guard, that's all you need from that spot. You just need a guy who's not going to screw everything up. Like, yes, you want him to grow into the role and, get used to playing next to Elton this season and, become like a ass-kicking left side of the O-line that they can run behind at will and stuff. But I'm just glad that he's been out there for multiple games in a row. That's a big thing. The continuity is absolutely necessary. And then the Jordan Morgan of it all. Like, Calais Campbell handed him his lunch like I expected him to today. And all I can say is, like, Jordan, be ready for immediate interior pressure against the Steelers. Josh, expect guys to be hitting you behind the line of scrimmage, because if Calais Campbell gave him the business, Cam Hayward is going to give him every bit of the business next week in Pittsburgh. And I don't really have a solution because Sean Ryan has been such a negative this season that he hasn't shored up his pass protection. But on top of that, he is not creating movement in the run game to, offset that play enough. Like he's whiffing blocks as a run blocker. So I don't, as much as people are like, well, what do you want? I don't know. Like that's the thing is I don't have an answer.
Maybe Kennard.
Maybe, but at first I was like, I don't think he's gonna play right guard anytime soon because it is the whole like, okay, they traded for him the weekend before the season, and it's like learn one position before we like really put the book to you kind of thing and stuff. You'd like to hope at this point that he's gotten a grasp of the playbook, but who knows at this point? And so it's kind of like, does Belton start having to play right guard at some point this season? I don't think Monk, even though Monk was back, which is good for their over roster counts, I don't think Monk is an option at right guard. I think he's a center only, just because he's looked so rough at guard in the preseason. I know things are different with the starters and all that kind of stuff, but he's had some assignment issues as a guard. So yeah, this is one of those where it could get moldy fast if they don't like. It could be moldy as soon as next Sunday night because like I said, this should have been a front that Jordan, and at times he did have like the last completion to Golden. He's looking for someone in the end zone. His first two reads, I think, are end zone shots, and you can see him step up in the pocket, drop his eyes, and then hit Golden on that over route that gains 17, and like you do that, and then you have other plays where it's like Jordan's like, I'm already having to get off my spot and move kind of thing, and we joke all the time that he's an ethical hooper and he has the highest or second highest average depth of target in the league and stuff. But today, everything was short for the most part because he's like, shit, there's not enough time for me today and stuff. So this O-line has got to get their shit figured out. Go sign Bill Callahan to be a coach. I'm serious. They gotta get this thing figured out because Jacobs is already dinged up. You can't get Jordan hit and stuff. And yeah, like you got to get this thing figured out. And it has to be, we had hopes that this would be a plus unit for the team. They've got to just be league average. They're not league average right now. They have been a sore disappointment and they've got to get it figured out if this team's going to have the shot to do anything special this season.
And I've got to stick up for Rashid a little bit just because with Tom battling with his oblique, we do know Rashid is battling with his quad too. So, I think we said that he was off the injury report this week, but you got to figure that's still he's still not back in play mode yet because of it. So you got to give him a little bit. But yeah, overall, this offensive line hasn't been holding. But I also have to say that a little bit of it could be scheme and a little bit of it could be Jordan just because of how he goes through his progressions. He's got a little bit of a long windup in on certain throws, so that doesn't always help. But yeah, overall, I think that's why this can stay in the stale is because it's not good, but it's not horrible yet.
Yeah, like I said, this is staying in the stale for now. It could be moldy as soon as next week because it's truly going to be the difference of do they have success against Pittsburgh or are they getting smoked off the field on Sunday Night Football? So, got to figure it out. Like you use your bye week. You only have the mini bye after Thanksgiving. Detroit is pissed off and catching up. You got to get it figured out. You don't have time anymore. This unit has to start pulling its weight better.
Stale-wise, I think that's pretty much all I've got. The rest of it can pretty much fit in the moldy.
Yeah, the only other stale thing that I can come up with is something that I thought up, and I did see Bukowski tweet about it during the game, is that this offense is a little bit too much swing for the fences than I like kind of thing. And I kind of alluded it to this point.
I'm going to touch a little bit on that with the moldy, so I think we can drop it with moldy.
We'll drop it with the moldy then. Good talk.
It's a moldy cheese.
So this offense over completely from head coach all the way down to the players has become moldy. We kind of were talking about it on the post game show where for some reason there is some kind of disconnect where the sequencing is even off. So you go back to the one fourth. I can't remember what part of the game it was, but they were at like third and two, and they hand off the ball, and it doesn't go anywhere, and then so they go for it on fourth and two, and that's the deep throw to Romeo Dobbs that just missed Romeo. Well, why the hell was the deep pass not the third and two? Why did you do that for fourth and two? Fourth and two, you're supposed to at least try to get your 2 yards, not a home run. Just sequences like that were driving me mad with things because, or like Brian pointed out, it's kind of the opposite of the Iowa thing where Iowa is run, 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 pass. They were doing pass, 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 run. And the whole sequencing was off. So it was like, it's something that we've talked about with LaFleur for the longest time where as soon as the offense gets punched in the mouth, he like loses all rhyme and reason for things. He's got to immediately go off script for stuff. And that's where I say that the whole Matthew Golden thing, they stopped scheming plans for Matthew Golden. They wanted to go to, somebody that Jordan was going to be comfortable with, and Kraft or Romeo. You said Wicks went out, so he couldn't target Wicks. We didn't see anything to Malik Heath. We didn't see, anything to Musgrave. We didn't. We saw maybe one thing to John Fitzpatrick, and so it just this offense similar to the defense in a way is as soon as they get punched, it's like they give up on things, and
Yeah.
then it's a rush.
And I think Jordan being the quarterback really calms LaFleur down as much as it can because Love just has that attitude that like, all right, give me the next play. I'm gonna try and make it like that. That's what's written on his. That's sort of that's been my joke for this week. This coming week is like I don't know if we're gonna be able to do it, but I really hope we get to put that pouty face on Rodgers' face. We get to give Rodgers that pouty face that I absolutely hated for his whole career in Green Bay. Jordan makes more mistakes. He makes more mind-breaking mistakes than Rodgers ever did. But there is something to where he just gives you that same monotone look no matter what. He could be getting his ass absolutely broken by a defense. And yes, I'm not going to correct myself from saying that. But he could be getting pummeled for a whole game. And he's going to go back to the huddle and just be like, all right, guys, here's the play. I know he's more boisterous and more like you can get a better rise on it. But that's how it's presented to you on like, the broad. It's like from here to here, his expression doesn't change very much in the midst of the game.
Did you see on that one play where he was trying to get Musgrave and Golden to switch? He was heated. He went over there yelling at them to move. You couldn't hear him, but you could literally see his body motions in that. Whoa.
And you know what? And I love to see that, pun intended and not intended. Those are the things that you want to see from him as he's like, we want him, we're saying, Packers fans are saying he is ascending, he's taking his game to the next level, all that kind of stuff. Those are the kind of moments that he's got to have. And obviously, I don't want him being like that all the time, but you need someone, especially with how young this team is. I know he's relatively young as a starting quarterback, especially when you count his years as a starter. He's young as well, but it's that whole, it's that scene from The Replacements where they get the penalties because they're all fighting in the huddle, and then Shane Falco has to go back in, and he's like, I'm the quarterback. I'm the only one who talks in the huddle. Like, all of you need to shut up and listen to me kind of thing. And, each guy is going to do it their own way and stuff, but I am glad that we're seeing, like I said, he can't be that guy every play, but when someone has to be the adult in the room, I do like seeing that Jordan is like, okay, like it's my, like whether he's comfortable or not being that guy, I appreciate that he has the presence to be like, it's me. It's the whole like, who's supposed, it's not like who should do something. I appreciate that he's reached the point where he's like, oh yeah, that's my job. it is part of what he's getting paid to do, is to be the adult in the room and stuff.
I
Um,
would pay anything right now for him to have been mic'd up at that moment because I just
and,
would love to have heard what he was yelling at those guys because
and
he was not happy.
that one lineman, probably Elton, after last week's mic'd up, goes, "Damn, Pookie," but but
That was crazy, but yeah, so I don't know what more we can throw in on this one, but
yeah, and
it's I think the reason why now it's getting into the moldy is because we're getting it week in and week out and nothing is changing.
and my point that I had in the stale that'll piggyback off of this, like you said, where it's like, what is it, a sequencing thing? Is it LaFleur like throwing his hands in the air when his initial stuff doesn't work, kind of thing, Like I I had a little bit of worry of this early in the season where everything is over 10 yards depth of target, all that kind of, everyone's showing the spray chart and it's ethical footballing and stuff. It's great, but I also had like bad memories of how 2011 went off the rails, where it's like, cool, like the big plays are awesome and it's great when you're hitting them, but like when those get inevitably taken away at some point, do you have the adjustments available? And it's great to see them run four verts and get, basketball on grass and get all five skill position players out on a route and stuff. But like I said, the one that came to my head, and Bukowski tweeted it too, is it's like, it's a little disconcerting that Love's options on some of these routes are like drop back, try to find someone 12 yards or more down the field, and then it's like, do I run or do I throw it over someone's head out of bounds, kind of thing. And that isn't a good thing to see out of this offense. And like I said, the I made the joke on Twitter that their check down routes are the guys chipping defensive ends. Like one of the check down routes he had was Kraft after he chipped the end, and that was the big 3rd and 7 conversion and stuff. But I don't like that. Obviously everyone's fine with it when it works and stuff, but I don't like that. You had the one 3rd down play where Love gets pushed out of the pocket to his right and he ends up having to throw the ball away. But where you have all 5 guys in the route, but only 3 of them are running a real pass play, and the other 2 guys are setting up for that dumb tight end lead blocked for the running back thing. And it's like, well, that's cool when a drive is rolling and you call it on like 2nd down around midfield, but when it's a 3rd down situation, I hate taking 2 of your guys off the board, because Jordan's not throwing that if 2 guys are sitting on that route. And that's what happened there. Is he's like, looks over there and he's like, shit, like I don't have a numbers situation there, so I can't throw that route. And then it's like, nobody's getting open because they're all running away from me and I'm getting pushed. Everyone's running to the left and I'm getting pushed to my right. And it's like, well, there's got to be a little, there's not going to be a perfect play for every situation and all that kind of stuff. But Jordan has always showed a willingness to come off deep routes, come to check downs. He's getting better at doing it more quickly. But I mean, part of the play he got the shit lit up out of him is because there's no check down route. And he's like, well, I guess I got to run this thing. And for everyone out there who was getting on him for not making the team first play and not sacrificing his body, do you still feel that way after today when Buda Baker lit him up like a Christmas tree? Like,
And almost did again.
yeah. Or that was Mac Wilson like 2 plays later on the 12-yard run. So like, everyone who's like, oh my god, it's so easy, we saw him run over Trey Amos, blah blah blah. No, Trey Amos didn't know he was coming on that play. The 2nd down play last week, the one against the Browns that everyone's like, oh my god, he's done this again. There's 2 linebackers staring him dead in the face that are ready to light his ass, that are like, he's a runner, we're gonna put the hurt on him, kind of thing. Same thing for that 2nd down play late in the Bengals game. Those 4 defenders are all staring him right in the face. And Jordan, you can say, like I said, the only correction I would have made is he should have dove, because you get the yards on. The rule book does say they're supposed to take it back to where the dive starts, but they almost never call it that way. They almost always reward you for the full dive kind of thing and stuff. Like, that was my only critique of that one. But for everyone was like, oh, he doesn't want it enough. He doesn't care enough. Like, oh, you need, dude, like, he almost got knocked the fuck out just to like and I don't think he meant to prove it to anyone, but it's like, just for all of you who are like, it's so easy, it's so crystal clear. No, like, if he slides, like, he's making the smart play, like, he's not doing it on fourth down short of the sticks or anything like that. Like, that one in my head, I was just like, do you see it? Like, do you ding dong see it? Like, do you like seeing your $50 million quarterback get his ass lit up? Like, no. So put that one on the wall. Everyone just needs to shut up in terms of where Jordan decides to slide and call a play dead to rights. So yeah, but I agree with you. Like, you can tell there's, like you said, both our points tie into this offense is just muddied off in the water enough to where you're like, it's not killing them yet, but it can't continue to be a problem as soon as this week, or it can't be a thing that's popping up a whole game a month from now. Like I said, we're at the point where they're still in that second quarter of the season where it's like, you just gotta get wins. You just gotta, like we both said, this is a part of the season where in 2023 and 2024, the season has kind of gotten away from them early, where it's like division chances have gone out the window because you start off, 2-1 or whatever, but then you don't win another game for like 2 months, kind of thing. Or last year, it's like you start off 4-2, but then you're like 500 in the next couple weeks and stuff. It's like I'm at least happy that the youngest team in the NFL, when the deck is against them, is like, we don't have it today, but you know what? We're gonna dig deep and we're gonna figure this shit out and win a game at least, kind of thing. So that's something they weren't doing the previous years. But this is definitely in the moldy where it's like, come on, LaFleur, you see exactly what's happening out there. You know your O line isn't playing very well. You got to fix that. But don't handicap your quarterback with routes that are going to get him dead, kind of thing. So I agree with you. What else you got in Moldy?
Well, I'm just going to tack on this one last thing because this is where my conspiracy theory is starting to make a little bit more sense. Where the floor only thinks you can score so many points in a season. Week 1, 27 points. Week 2, 27 points. Week 3, 10 points. 20 points. Bengals, 27 points. Cardinals, 27 points. It's like he only thinks he has enough points to last him through the season that he can't. So it's got to be this Dallas game has really pissed him off because he scored more points than he wanted to score in a game. So
The fact that
yes,
their four wins are all when they score 27 points. One of the stupid funny stats of the NFL season for the Pack. It is one of those you just kind of shake your head and be like, well, I guess they hope they win. They score 27 points like 15 more times this season, but I know it's like, what the hell? Like, can you make it a little more comfortable? Honestly, that should go in the moldy part too.
so I have two more that I can, well, technically
Yay.
three more that I can think of. I'm going to let you have a choice. I can either go with one that we've been ragging on for several weeks, one that is more of a serious one that we've been ragging on for a couple weeks, or I can go with the goofy one.
Go with the serious one.
Okay, so the serious one that we've been kind of ragging on the last couple weeks has been the secondary. It's been consistent. You mentioned it earlier that even Halfley was getting pissed off with his team out there. It's this soft zone. It's this, these guys are the one Trey McBride touchdown where they were in zone coverage. Cooper gives up and Nixon is coming across the end zone and neither one of them are able to get there to make the play on McBride, or at least the ball. Evan Williams struggled with his one pass interference because, quote unquote, he didn't look back at the ball. You get to where your front seven has got you where now it's 3rd and 23 and you're giving up 40 yards, or you've got them down 3rd and long to go and they're able to gain double the yardage they need out of it. This is where, like we talked about before, like we've talked about all season, I've talked about it in the post game. I understand getting rid of Jair because of money because of injuries, because of not being able to see the field. He's not doing great in Baltimore, whatever. But you did nothing to replace that spot. You hoped your big signing and Nate Hobbs was going to do something. You hoped that Keyshawn Nixon was going to step up. You hoped Carrington Valentine was going to do something. Then what? Micah Robinson, you took in the 7th round. You can't blame much on him because he's a kid, not really experienced. You didn't keep Kalen King. That was on you, whatever. Corey Ballantyne's not the answer. You can maybe do a vet deal on Asante Samuel Jr. just to see what he's got, but at this point in the season, nobody's even put him on the practice squad, so you've got to question what he's actually got to give. And you did nothing to help with a spot that you knew was going to be weak going into the season. So it is definitely not stale anymore. It is definitely moldy. The secondary, I don't know if you can blame the safeties as much because they're playing their hearts out, but you got to do something. Do you play Bullard as a corner? Do you play Evan Williams as a corner and hope that they can do better than what's been going on? I don't know. Who was it that put this out a couple weeks ago? Was it Philippe? That, they had plus grading when they're in. This is all in limited view, but they had like plus grading when it comes to press man corner, but they had major negative grading when it comes to soft zone corner or soft zone coverage. Do you try to go with your man coverage and see if that does any better for you? I don't know. You saw it. You mentioned it. I saw it. I talked about it. Halfley's getting pissed off. I said it earlier. If I'm Brian Gutekunst, I do everything in the world to make sure every day this week I'm bringing in corner after corner to work them out to see if that can do. Hope you can get a Rasul Douglas type of pickup off of somebody's practice squad. Who knows? Maybe it is an Asante Samuel Jr., but again, we're going into week 8. Nobody's even bothered to put him on a practice squad, so you got to wonder if he's even healthy or able to come out and play. So, yeah, that's a moldy.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a disaster for Hobbs. He looked okay coming back against the Commanders, wasn't really targeted much against Cleveland, and then from that Dallas game on, it's been bad for him. And like, he gets back shouldered really bad against Marvin Harrison Jr. Like he wasn't even there on that play. That was the one that they cut to Halfley just smashing the table in the press box because he's like, okay, like I'm sure in some regards it's those corners in the room that are like, Coach, let us play some more man. And it's like he calls tighter man coverage and they forget how to find the ball in the air kind of thing and stuff. And then, the 40-yard reception before halftime, it's partly on Halfley because I don't like that play call there. I don't like that you're in a 3rd and long and you're calling cover 2 where it's like you're inviting a deep shot against you. But also, there is no reason for Keyshawn Nixon to be dropping that route up the sideline as easily as he does. That's just piss poor situational awareness, not understanding what's happening behind you, not understanding game situation. It's like, dude, you've got to carry that route. And then on the other end of it, it's like, that's the second time in 3 games that Evan Williams has been too unathletic to get over the top of a deep shot. And that's the one part that I can pick on the safeties is it's like, I think overall he's been okay. And X has obviously been pretty good, but it's like, that's a couple times this season where we've seen Evan Williams be unable to get over the top of a deep route from cover 2 shell. And I know there was a route hold middle of the field, but that throw is not on a line. It's kind of a slight floater into that hole, and he just can't get there. And it's not even a matter of like the Dallas one where he kind of can't pick if he wants to catch it or hit the guy. It's like he can't get there and he's jumping with one hand to be like, oh my God, maybe I'll just get it kind of thing. But also, Keyshawn should not be standing there looking at him try and make that. Like I said, it's not quitting on the play like the one in Dallas where he just doesn't follow the receiver when he's clearly in man, but it's again complete lack of football IQ where it's like a 2 yard swing route cannot hurt you. Like you've got to go push up the deep cover guy, the deep route, and if someone catches a ball in the flat, you've got to count that your two athletic linebackers are going to rally and make a tackle there. Like don't. And I think based on the dots that Demovsky showed, there is no route that really should have caught. Keyshawn and Hobbs are, you know, Darren or not Darren. What's it called? Rod Woodson used to have this phrase. He talked about not finding work in coverage and just dead coverage where you're just covering grass kind of thing. And it's Hobbs and Nixon too many times they either are fine playing it like it's the whiteboard where it's like, well, I'm supposed to drop to this depth and I guess this is it kind of thing. This is more of a Hobbs one. And then Nixon has a really poor clicker in terms of figuring out what route is the more important one given a game situation. The touchdown is more of like a okay, Halfley, you gotta live and die with some man coverage in the red zone because the Cardinals call that play because they're like, you're going to run zone in the red zone and we're gonna take advantage. So they send, Nixon could be maybe a step earlier to drop coverage on the initial route because he carries that post over. But again, like you said, Edge Cooper just doesn't have the processing power to know when he's got to stick with a route or when he's got to, because there's no threatening route. The only thing that happens is Brissett kind of half breaks the pocket and starts to take a couple steps in his direction. But it's like, no, you've got to carry, like, there's two guy, definitely one guy, maybe two on the whiteboard who are like, do not lose these two guys. And twice in the red zone, the Packers are like, Trey McBride, that's okay. Someone will get him kind of thing. It's like, no, like, if anything, someone else should be getting open because two guys are like, oh my God, Trey McBride. Like, I can live with that outcome more than the Trey McBride is wide fucking open with no resistance in the red zone twice. That, it's hard to say where the coaching ends and the play, but at some point, the guys on the field have to be able to think for their own goddamn selves. And there were too many times in this game where they just totally didn't have it. And like you said, in terms of answers on roster, I don't know what you do. I do think one of them is you just make Valentine a legitimate threat to get playing time out there. Like he's going to get his chances and stuff. Outside of that, it's like, do you call up Micah Robinson? Do you sign him to the active roster?
He's
do you
on the
sign
active roster. Didn't they sign him?
They moved him around so many times I can't even remember what his status is. But
I'm pretty sure they brought him up to the active roster after they IR'd somebody.
Okay, wait, let's see. No, he's still on the practice squad.
See, I thought they brought him. That was one of the
No, I think they were just elevating him a bunch of times. So like, I think he has one more game day elevation. Use it and let him play defense. Like you said, I don't know. I know they think that Evan is the better coverage safety, but I think you got to go back and see what Bullard can give you back. Or give Oladapo some snaps back there because, like I said, it hasn't cost them, but that's two times where Evan hasn't been able to get over the top of routes from deep coverage. And as great as he is, McKinney cannot play both sides of the field at the same time. Like, that's just humanly impossible. What else? And then, yeah, like, to all the people who said, like, Halfley's taking too long, and even I said, like, I think he's taking maybe a step too long to adjust. Today proved like he's thrown the kitchen sink and the kitchen sink has bounced off and broken on the floor. Like it's not happening. And then it's a roster construction thing. Not that he's great or really setting the world on fire, but they had two shots at Trey Amos. And I can't really fight them over either of the picks they made because they've needed both guys in Golden and Anthony Belton. But at the same time, like you said, they just did not do enough at cornerback. It's excuse me, like they just did not do enough. You Jair has proven that he's not that guy anymore. Like we've seen, like Baltimore isn't even activating him on game days. But you cut Jair, you signed Nate Hobbs, you knew you still needed bodies, and all you did outside of that is draft Micah Robinson in the 6th round. Just absolutely not enough. So as much as I've been like, this guy's a free agent because this and that and blah, and it's like, well, at this point, you got to just almost sign guys to see if there's anything there because you kind of know what you got in the room, and I don't think it's good enough. So you just gotta do whatever. But I do think part of it is giving Valentine a good shake. I know some people are like, oh, but he wasn't. Okay, none of the corners were good against Dallas, so let's just throw that one out. Let's just make that the mulligan for everyone it needs to be. Outside of that, he's played some solid ball for them this season. Make that a real competition between him and one of the starting corners. And then, yeah, you know what? Just start working out every Dick, Joe, and Larry who's on the free agent market and see if you get another Razul from 2021. Like, you're at that point. Like, you can't, it's the, what is it, the Thomas Jefferson quote? The only thing that allows evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing. Groot, you got to do something at this point. And I don't know that there are many moves to make at this point, but you got to do something. So, like, leave no stone unturned, all those adages, but it's time for Groot to, like, try and make something happen there.
Yeah, and I've been looking up and down this list, and I mean, there's guys here, but really, how much do they have left in the tank? You got James Bradbury, Kendall Fuller, Stephon Gilmore, Corey Ballantyne's still out there, Jordan Poyer. But like I said, how much do they really have left in the tank? Now, this is according to Sport Track,
Yeah.
or Spot Track, or whatever you want to call it. So, I mean, these could be wrong, but
I'd be bringing Gilmore in for a workout right now. Like, he played in a much more, like, he was good for the Vikings last season, and like you said, you're never going to find out unless you try, kind of thing. And the worst thing you can do at this point is not try, because you can't have this continue to be a festering issue for this team that has the aspirations it does in a league where no one is excellent. Like, nobody is excellent. I know everyone's like, oh, the Chiefs are bouncing back, but who have they really played over the past few weeks? I know they beat the Lions, but that's at home, and they are still in the territory of, if the vibes get shaken up one more time, do they fight through it again? Like, they're in that territory. But as far as the Packers go, Gutekunst, you've got to just try something different at this point.
so what do you got? Do you got any more moldies?
My other moldy is just the special teams. Like, Haversick has saved them from being like disaster kind of thing, but it's like just the penalties. I mean, just the poorly timed penalties. And I get that special teams penalties are going to happen, but it just always seems like like you get the dumb holding call on a return, or you get the face mask after, like, and that's the thing, is it's like, it's not like you even stopped them for, like, you didn't even like do a good job like keeping them on their side of the field. You gave up like a 40-yard return, and then on top of it you gift them 15 yards of penalty yardage. So it's like you said, it's in that, like, it's a problem, it's still a big problem. So I'm just going to continue to harp on it. I'll let you take the driver's seat. I know you said you had a couple more. What were your other two? The other, like, one we've been harping on, and the other fun one.
All right, so the one that we've been harping is the officiating. I said this throughout the game that it's awful on socials. It's awful funny that Micah Parsons comes out and they're not really press conferences, but they're the media availability things where he criticized the officiating about the different no calls and not even just on him. He just was talking about it on defense in general, where they'll call offsides on defense, but they won't do it on offense. They won't call this on offense, but they do on defense and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, the Packers go and start getting these weird ass calls all damn game. And this is just a couple of days after he made those comments. And yeah, there were a couple of them that were I can understand the hip drop penalty on Micah because that's been a point of emphasis for them. There was the offsides. Yeah, that was obvious because you watched him jump off sides. There was what's the other one that was really obvious that um, I don't know. There was another one that was really obvious, but then you had the Evan Williams OPI. That was kind of a ticky tacky OPI. You had a couple of holding penalties that were kind of ticky tacky over uh, holding penalties. You had still a ton of no call holding penalties on the Packers front seven. It's kind of I looked this up on the post game. It was like the Packers had were what was it? Let me look here just a second. For penalties, Cardinals were called 6 penalties for 55 yards. The Packers were 10 penalties for 94 yards. That's a little bit slanted in my mind, especially when there were penalties that should have been called against the Cardinals that weren't called. So this is continuously being. There were a couple of them that Micah should have had a 5 sack game easily. There's one that comes to mind where Micah breaks free and the right tackle grabs him by the hand and he can't go anywhere. You can literally see on the game film, he's got his one hand free trying to grab Brissett, but he can't use the other one because the offensive lineman grabbed his other hand. And it was right in front of referees. So this is probably going to stay in the moldy for a very long time. Nothing's ever going to be done about it unless a miracle happens. And this is where you kind of wish you could have a situation like the longest yard where you start targeting referees with fastballs and maybe they'll change their mind on things. But yeah, so that's one of them. I don't know if you want to make comments on that or not.
No, yeah, like the one that did it for me is when the play that Quay got I'm pretty sure he got a stinger on, but like he's getting crunched in the middle of the pile because why? Because he's getting bear hugged by the running back. So it's like you guys have got to be better than that and stuff. And then my only issue with the hip drop, I understand that you're trying to eliminate certain injury potential and stuff like that. The part I do not understand with that is so like for me the hip drop tackle falls in the same bucket as like the what is it called? What's the one? What do they call it when the shoulder pad pull one? The
Oh, horse collar.
horse collar. So it's like those are basically the same play like, in terms of why it's dangerous and stuff. It's really dumb to me that you can horse collar the quarterback in the pocket, but the hip drop tackle is illegal on quarterbacks. Because to me, the reason those two plays come up, well, okay, I guess the one reason that the horse collar comes up is like you're running by the quarterback, you just happen to reach out and grab the guy's shoulder pads. But the reason that the bigger reason those two things happen in the pocket is because quarterbacks try to not get sacked. And it's like I don't think defenders should be penalized because quarterbacks want to be, it's the Shiba Inu meme with the a big, strong, burly Shiba Inu. Like they try to do that, but then like when anything out of the ordinary happens, it's the like sad Shiba that's like, oh no, like where my flag kind of thing and stuff. And I do think that's a dumb double standard because it's kind of like my whole thing with intentional grounding. It's like, okay, cool, you don't want to get hit, just take a knee. There's a simple solution to that. You don't want it, just take a knee. It's fine. We can all be
The
adults.
Favre collapse giving Strahan the
Yeah,
sack record. Just do that.
yeah, seriously. So just do that. But I agree, it's a problem. And then
But my big thing with it is also with the hip drop. I mean, like I said, I know that's a point of emphasis, so that whatever it is, he wasn't intentionally going for a hip drop, but he
yeah,
got hit in the back by one of the offensive linemen.
right.
So, but beyond that, then you watch the rest of the game, and the Cardinals' defensive players were tackling our playmakers by wrapping their arms around their neck. Come on, that's like not a safe way of tackling somebody. So it's whatever. I don't know. Like I said, nothing's ever going to happen unless a miracle pops up or somehow I do get a lamp with a genie that's going to give me 3 wishes or whatever. But I don't know. My last one is kind of a goofy one, but in a way it kind of makes sense. And that's, even though I just put him in the fresh take, it's Haversick, because his success is pretty much guaranteed. Rich Bisaccia is probably going to stay around for another year. And by that, I mean, like Mike and I were talking about earlier, this Haversick has not been this type of kicker before, but now he's come in and has been doing above what he has in his past. So now everything's going to look like, oh, Rich Bisaccia is a genius. He's going to, he's a kicker whisperer and all that stuff. So this basically saves Rich Bisaccia from any kind of ill fates at the end of the season.
That's a bummer. I hate thinking about it that way. You've made me very sad.
Well, I got to thinking about it as we were talking about fresh takes, and then you mentioned something about Bisaccia. It's like, son of a bitch, that guy's going to be on the team for another year because of what Haversick has been doing.
No! It's the Jesse from what's it called? What's it from? Breaking Bad. Can't get it. Keep getting away with this. Oh
So,
no.
yeah, but that's about all I got. I mean, we could go on forever on goods and bads and nitpicking and all that stuff. But in the end, it was a win. It wasn't a great win. It was just a win. And Matt LaFleur needs somebody to poke him with a cattle prod and say, you can actually score more than 27 points in a game and not risk anything.
At the end of the day, it again comes down to they're getting wins, and I'm okay with that. But we can't be having these same talking points every single week. Like, there has to be an inflection point where they've got to start getting better, and you need to see improvement from these guys up and down the roster. So it's just got to happen. Like, it's just absolutely got to happen where they've got to start playing better football. And I do think they can. And yes, I know they have problems at corner and there's issues and all that stuff, but there's better play to be had out there, and they've got to start doing it. Like that's the key for me, is like they can do it. Like, we've seen these guys come out guns blazing, and it's time for them to flip that switch and like make it happen and stuff. And there's some underlying issues that are the same thing over and over, but overall I do think that it's the whole leaky wall thing, where they're fixing one thing, they're shoring up certain things, and other things are kind of like coming out as bigger issues. So like, if we can just get some improvement across the board kind of thing, I think we'll see a cleaner game from the team. So like, that's what I'm crossing my fingers for. But yeah, other than that, I think we're good.
Kids are destroying things over there, so we better get out of here.
Yeah. But as our usual, please check out the website, ohanapackers.org. You can link directly to the shop there. Support us on the website, please.
Nobody can see this. I showed it off during the post game, but I got in my Soul Stealer design T-shirt.
Excellent work. So check that out there. Support us, please. Articles are going up. All the episodes of both shows are on the website, so please check us out there. Check out the podcast on your favorite social medias, at Ohana_Packers on Twitter, at Ohana Packers Edition on Instagram. Please follow us on those and on Facebook. We're trying to hit that 100 follower media, or 100 subscriber minimum on Facebook, so that we can live stream our shows there when we do the live streams. Programming note, Joe and I will be doing, our weekly show will be the live stream show after the Sunday night game next week. So you will see the two of us and not Brian next week. Please give the podcast of us. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting app. Give us a like and a subscribe. And, we're going over a lot of our talking points, a lot of our thoughts, but if you have any that are slightly different, or if you're in agreement with us, please send them our way, and we'll be sure to make those points on the show. Packers move to 4-1-1. They make sure that they will definitely be at the head of the NFC North for another week. And they set up a big game on Sunday Night Football next week that we'll go into more detail with our opponent preview show. But they face off against the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. So big game, big test on the road for the Packers, trying to get over 500 as a road team and stay atop the NFC North and NFC Conference standings. So for that, for Iowa Joe, I might go Pack Go and aloha.
Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for the up. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who wanna go.